It's NAMM season and we're joined by Steve from Marshall in the Guitar Studio. And today we're going to be checking out the brand new Studio Series JCM900.
We are indeed.
Let's do it. NAMM season is here, which means we're going to be looking at tons and tons of new exciting products. And as I said, Steve from Marshall has kindly come up to the Guitar HQ today to show me some things that I'm very, very excited about. But first of all, how you doing, man? Are you okay?
I'm good. It's a long journey here.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
Feeling kind of fresh, which is weird.
Yeah, which is strange. Yeah, I think it's something to do with all these loud volumes we've already had as well. And obviously Steve was bringing some particularly precious cargo with him today, which you can click above my head if you want to check out some of these more, some more of the videos, sorry, that we were shooting today. But what are we talking about first, man? Let's check this out.
So this is the Studio 900. So people may be familiar with the JCM900, but they may not be familiar with the Studio range. So just in a nutshell, the Studio range is something we've been doing for a few years now, and they are the kind of the iconic Marshalls. Yeah. Shrunk down.
Like the Hall of Fame stuff, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly that. So we've got like a JCM800, we've got a Plexi, we've got a Jubilee, and now we've got the 900.
I was just about to say, what more could you need? But then you added on the 900 there
that's
as well.
It. We also did the JTM as well last year.
Yes,
so it's all the same features as the original amps, but smaller footprint, lower wattage, which makes it more user-friendly and flexible for a lot of people's needs, especially if you're playing at home as well, that kind of thing.
Huge deal. And certainly, like you were telling me just before we filmed as well, that like sometimes with these amps, it's good just to like really cook them. And obviously with the options on these, you know, for the power sort of soaking, I guess, if you want to call it that, you can certainly do that with these, even if you've got neighbours or anything, you know, that may call the police on you if you play too loud. But yeah, this is I've come around, like, I'm not even so much come around, but just became more aware of the 900 over the past, like, couple of years. And it's one of those ones that, like, I've known of so many, like, particularly, like, metal bands back from kind of, you know, the 80s and the 90s and whatnot, like, that were using this. But one thing that really surprised me was actually, like, it was the clean on these that I really liked. But there's certainly a couple of tidbits about the 900.
I mean, the weird backstory for the 900, they actually came about because towards the end of the 1980s, people were modifying Marshalls for more gain. Everybody wanted more gain.
More is more, after all, you know?
And everybody was using like a Plexi or a JCM800, but typically with an overdrive in the front of it, just to cook it a little more. So that's why the 900 was built. Marshall were getting a lot of amps into the service department for repair because people were getting them modified and it was going horribly wrong, basically. So they were like, well, let's just make an amp with more gain, hence the 900. There was various versions of the 900. This is based on the 4100, which was the 2-channel JCM900, because there was a single channel as well. So you got a clean and an overdrive. But weirdly, even though it was kind of made for, you know, the scene at the time, which was kind of off the back end of the hair metal scene and all that kind of stuff happening in the late 80s, early 90s. When it came out, music kind of took a U-turn anyway. Yeah,
it really did. Yeah, absolutely.
So actually it became adopted by all like the grunge bands and the indie bands and all the new wave of punk bands and all that kind of stuff. So it became its own thing. So it's got all the same features as the big one, apart from it's 20 watts. So as a general rule, the Studio series are 20 watt variants of the bigger ones, the 100 watt heads. But it's switchable down to 5 watts, like all the other Studio series, but it's also got a 1 watt setting on this particular one as well.
Which actually, if I check around the back, I'm sure we are running this at the 1 watt version right now, which, I mean, I think you'll agree probably in that, like, sound at the start there it's definitely not missing anything with that, other than, like, literally just our volume, like, in here. I mean, I think I've still got that sound still on at the moment. There is. It's just even like very quickly hear the body in this again, because that was one thing that really like took me by surprise with it. don't know about you, but that's just like it's the
it's
sound
great.
of just an era for me.
Yeah.
Like that's just it pure like it sends me just into all of those albums that just you know from that period of time, which is absolutely awesome. Just
I think typically as well, the 900's kind of a little bit different to the Marshalls that came before it because it's a tighter sound as well.
Totally.
And the distortion you're getting out of it is kind of more solid, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah. It's more focused. It's a lot more, or whatever adjectives we want to use for obviously describing sound. But yeah, let's maybe just jump into this. Starting with, obviously you heard the kind of full like meat of the B channel there, which is the overdrive channel. But kind of as alluded to at the start here, I've been on a bit of a sort of like journey of self-discovery with Marshall cleans recently, so maybe let's switch over to that channel A there. And you were saying, actually kind of just before we filmed as well, was just this amp is quite interesting in the sense that like channel A is not just a dedicated clean channel as well, and we'll hear that as we kind of put the gain up. But let's just put on that kind of split coil sound there, that iconic one, and just let's check out this channel, shall we? Which, I mean, what's wrong with that? There's nothing. That sounds so good.
It's a sound that people don't talk about enough for Marshall.
No, definitely not.
The clean. You know, there's obviously the obvious brands that do the clean thing amazingly, but it is a different vibe with Marshall cleans. Yeah,
and that's absolutely what I got with it. You see, like, as you said, you know, you've got your sort of like clean pillars, shall we call them, but there's something about that. There's just like, there's a presence and there's an attack to it that I just can't get enough of, genuinely. It's so good.
Yeah, and like I say, the reverb you're hearing as well is all from the amp.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to say actually as well, because I don't have any other pedals plugged in. This is all just the amp doing the work here.
Yeah, and interestingly, it's a spring reverb, same as the bigger 4100 100 watt head. It's the same reverb tank as well.
Is it actually?
Yeah, so it's got a huge reverb tank in there for the size of it.
It was so weighty. It's actually not that heavy, to be fair. Certainly not compared to the 100 watt version.
Yeah, but again, the idea was to give people the same sounds. So even with the reverb, we thought, well, we want to give them the same reverb experience as well.
Oh, yeah. On the note of actually reverb, before we move over, sorry, as well, if you wouldn't mind, just so we can show the folks watching this just how far the reverb goes as well. So I'll just play a couple of chords, and if you wouldn't mind just turning that up just as I'm doing it, man, that would be awesome. So plenty of reverb obviously on tap there, which is awesome.
It's probably more than you'll ever need. It gets a bit wild towards the top, but yeah, your starting point was around kind of 9 o'clock-ish, which is kind of, I think, the sensible end of reverb.
Before the sound engineer starts telling you to turn it down.
But yeah, it's a great sounding reverb, and obviously you've got a separate reverb level for each channel as well. Yes,
which is, I think, is a really handy thing, especially, you know, because one thing that I kind of alluded to, obviously, is this fact that, well, at the start was what you were saying, was the fact that this amp isn't necessarily like a clean and an overdrive. Like, they kind of like cross the barriers to each other, sort of the borders that like, because we're sitting on about, what, 1 o'clock there on the actual preamp game for channel 1 there. But when you start to cook that, it does kind of get a little bit hotter, doesn't it?
Yeah, so you can either have a clean channel with an overdrive channel or kind of an old school crunch overdrive channel into the dedicated overdrive channel.
Let's do that actually, right now. We need to do a little bit of kind of balancing act here as well with the volume, just so we don't blow Aaron's ears out in the room too. But yeah, this was us sitting just at that 1 o'clock sort of spot there. That sounds awesome. That sounds so cool, especially for a clean channel, well, quote unquote clean channel there. Because what I really like about particularly the 900 in itself is exactly what you said there. That first channel, when you cook it, is getting that kind of more classic Marshall sound, whereas the channel B, well, at the time certainly, was a more modern, contemporary sort of sound as well. A lot tighter, a lot less body to it. Like, whereas that is, you know, strum a chord and it just fills the room.
That's it. It's a funny one because a lot of people, when you mention a 900, they might go, "Oh, it's not my thing. There's too much gain."
Yeah, just like, not for me.
Well, actually,
it
does all that.
There's a lot of other stuff in here as well,
yeah.
and you never know when you're going to need that gain.
But it was always just known for that second channel, really. Like, because at the time it was a lot of gain. I mean, but today's standards actually, it's pretty moderate. It's
pretty tame, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
so when this came out, probably like 1990-ish, it was a lot of gain for the time to get straight out of an amp without any additional pedals. So.
Absolutely. Let's maybe check out that additional section of gain by moving over to the B channel here as well now. I'm going to turn the reverb off here as well. And what we're sitting at about kind of 3 o'clock on the gain here. So you're going to get that kind of like sort of tighter attack from it. And I'm definitely going to pull out kind of my classic Metallica sort of style here as well.
Nice.
I could play on that all day, man. That's just so much fun to actually hang out with. Obviously, we are cooking that a little bit more there, which I think actually, see if we can do the same thing again, just where if I'll just play a little bit and actually we'll go the opposite end.
Well, we'll go for the gain.
You can reduce the gain, man. Yeah, that would be awesome. Definitely saw that style change to more palm-muty when you raised that gain there, man.
Yeah, it's interesting because as we got to the lower end of the gain on that channel, we were kind of hearing what we ended up with on channel A.
Exactly.
The gain kind of cranked up a little more.
Just that kind of crossing the border stuff, which just I think is really, really helpful, especially for, you know, the fact it's called the Studio Series, I think is quite fitting because this would be such a great studio amp for a lot of people, you know, whether it be like your bedroom recording, if you know, are going to a studio or anything like that, because this covers such a wide spectrum, you know, of super pristine cleans.
Yes.
All the way to that like really, really tight classic Marshall distortion, which I think is awesome.
And also, I think with the other studio ranges, like with the 800 and the JTM and the Plexi, it kind of does that one thing, that iconic thing. This is probably the most flexible out of the bunch now. So if you want an amp that's a bit of an all-rounder, if you gig in and you need a channel A, whether it's clean or crunch, and then your channel B and your reverb, it kind of offers a little more as far as features go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Compared to the others.
And we haven't tried it today with anything, but obviously the amp takes pedals great in the front, especially if you want, you know, to kick the kind of with a little bit of an overdrive.
Sure.
It's also got an effects loop on it as well, doesn't it?
Got an effects loop.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you've got sort of DI outs as well, which not a lot of many people use anyway.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But if you want to go straight out of the DI out into an IR or something like that, that's kind of useful for direct recording. That. Kind of
totally.
thing as well.
Yeah. The full essence of this is, I think, is just really cool because the fact that it's full valve. It's you know, it's got all the kind of, you know, you're mentioning even the spring tank and all that sort of stuff is exactly the same as the other one. It's just much more easy to cart about and listen to more than anything. But
funnily enough, on the valves as well, it's 5881s in the power section on a 900. In the early days, a lot of people ask, has he got EL34s? Because when they actually came out, they did have EL34s.
Ah, there we go.
And we switched over to 5881s. By accident, actually, because basically, I don't know if people know, I'm showing my age here, but the world ran out of EL34s in the early 90s.
I did hear, you know what, I've seen like that, just of like this panic stations when it came to basically amplifiers, but you're getting a history lesson as well, getting some cool tones. That's what it's all about.
So we switched it to 5881s, which is essentially a military kind of grade 6L6 kind of sound. So which probably lends itself to kind of the different voicing as well, the tightness.
Yes,
so we ended up just sticking with it because it offered a different thing.
See, sometimes when a problem occurs, you know, magic is born after that, or greatness is born, certainly. But no, I'm so impressed with this one, man. I think it's just absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Any other little tidbits that you feel the people at home should know about the JCM, other than it just sounds amazing?
Yeah, I mean, it does sound great. I just think if you're one of those people who's kind of, you know, already made your mind up on what a JCM900 is, I think they should come and try this version.
Definitely.
Because like I say, I think the lower wattage helps get those kind of bigger tones.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because the power amps, like you said earlier, it's cooking a little bit more. It's doing a bit more. The valves in the power section are actually working harder, which is great. And yeah, it's really good for those kind of cleaner and mid-gain sounds as well, which people don't ever associate with this amp. So,
that's the big write-off. And again, you know, I've been a bit of a broken record with this one, certainly, but like my sort of discovery over the past couple of years that, like, well, actually, you know, Marshalls can really do that. Like, you know, lower gain, the clean stuff is absolutely awesome as well. And, you know, the fact that this comes built in with a reverb and all that as well, it doesn't make me as scared when I'm playing like a super dry signal if, the same way that I would do with a Plexi. But yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea of what the JCM900 Studio Series can do. Exactly like Steve said. If you've been on the fence about this, or you maybe, you know, I wouldn't say you've got misconceptions about it, but certainly I did. Get into your local guitar, put this down at the 1 watt setting, and then just go to town on it, because it's absolutely awesome. But let us know what you think about the brand new JCM900 in the comments below, and while you're there, give us a like and a subscribe, because you can keep up with all the latest news at Guitar HQ. But until next time, I've been Kieran.
I've been Steve.
And we've been checking out the Marshall Studio Series JCM900. Have a great day.